Good morning, everybody. What we are doing today is doing tutorial videos on how to do the basic steps of Mandala, which includes the dots, the walk of the dots, and the swooshes. So right now, I'm trying to get a couple of the tools of the rods that you have to kind of show you what you're going to get, what we're going to do. So the first thing is going to be the dots. And so the dots you can do with different tools, of course. We have this, like these rods, which I'm going to use this one. And then we also have the dot tools, which I'm going to use the tools that you have in your kit so that you can kind of tell a little bit better. And so these are the two we're going to use. Or I might use a bigger one, actually. Welcome in, everybody. So I'm recording this on TikTok. Okay, so dots. So the first step of dots is pretty simple. The main thing you got to remember is make sure you have enough paint. Try not to use it too sparingly, because if you do, then you end up not getting, the beautiful dots that you're trying to look for. And so, welcome in, everybody. We are working on a tutorial for dots and the three different painting techniques I use. But these are the basics of them. So it's going to be the dots, the swooshes, and walk the dots. So getting paint is the most important part. Like, don't be afraid to use your paint. And so we're going to use black just so it's easier to show on the board. Hi, Tina. I'm doing great. How are you? And so we get our tool where it's got enough. And then we can just dot. And that's all it takes. Hi, welcome in. We're doing a tutorial. So with the dots, it's simple. You just dot. Now in between each dot, so you can keep the size consistent, you need to re-dip each time to get the same size dot. Good. Okay, so that's how you do it. Just dip it in, touch your canvas, and dip, touch your canvas, dip, touch your canvas. Now I'll show you what happens here in a little bit if you do not reload the paint onto your tool in between the dots. The other dots that you can do are going to be with the rods that are in the kits that I provide. So this is one of the rods. We're going to try to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and dip it down into the paint. But you kind of got to watch, because you don't want it to go too far up the sides. See, I didn't get it all. Because if you do, it can kind of make your dots look kind of wonky sometimes. So, here we are. It's at the tip. You've got that beautiful little mound at the bottom, which is what you kind of want. And then you can just kind of do it, try to keep your rod straight up and down, and lightly tap the paper. Okay, so you get your dot. Once again, just like the other tools, you need to reload the paint. Well, I got a little bit further up the edge. That's okay. You're going to reload the paint. Make sure you've got that little mound. And then tap. Now, if you get too far up the edge, hi, honey, we're doing a tutorial today. If you get too far up the edge and you've got too much going on, here you go, guys. Like, see how it's kind of like all wonky? Watch what happens. Your dot gets wonky. So that's why you got to be careful how much paint you load on to the edge, because if you load up too much and the edge is all special, like how I showed you, then your dot's going to come out wonky. So if you ever do this, honestly, best thing to do, I mean, if you're really good, which I am not, I cannot reshape this. So don't be afraid to just wipe it off and do it again. So, and this is the simple dots. Now next, to me, this next technique, the walking the dots, is very, very soothing. I like how the dots kind of go from bigger to smaller. Now, walking the dots, you can't do it with the rods. You have to use the tool that's got the little balls at the end. You've got to use these, okay? This is how you're going to walk the dots, is by that little ball. The paint's slowly going to be used up. Now, just a little bit ago, I mentioned that you have to re-dip it each time. But with this one, you just dip the one time. See, we load up our paint. And then we tap. And then we keep tapping. Now, when you walk the dots, they slowly get smaller and smaller as you use up the paint on the tip. See? Walking the dots. My line's not straight, but that's okay. This is practice. I got to do it like slightly tilted to go straight. Good morning. See? And there we go. Oh, good. I'm glad this is helpful. So, that's how you get them. Now, of course, like the other tools, if you kind of load up a heck of a lot of paint, like see how it's kind of dripping down? Oh, I'm trying to get it to focus. See how it's kind of dripping down? It's going to make your dots bigger. But it'll make that first dot bigger only. And then the rest will be the same. So it kind of makes it look a little off. So that's why you have to be careful about how much paint you load onto your tool. Once again, if it's like dripping down where it's about to fall off, it's not going to go well. But if it's just a little bit, then you got your first dot. And then slowly get smaller and smaller. And there's just something so satisfying about this. I love it. Now, the swooshes are a little fun. In my opinion, there's like 3 different ways you can do it. Now, mind you, the ways that I'm going to show you today are without brushes. Because there's a way to do it with brushes, but honestly, I haven't mastered that yet. I am working on it. But I will show you how to do it, because this is for basics for any kits that are new order from me. So, let me get a bigger tool. Now, for viewing purposes, I'm going to use one of my, that's okay. I could show you all with this. So you can either start it off, hi honey, welcome in. You can either start it off with this or the rods, but I'm going to show you with the rods because the end is bigger, so it'll be easier to see. And so, once again, kind of like you did for these dots up here, you're going to load up your paint. And you're going to place it down. Now, this is important. For you to get a successful swoosh, you need to make sure to reload the paint and add on more. So this one, you can kind of get that tip messy like I did before, like dripped. And then just kind of like add the paint to it. Like that. So now we have that little mound of paint versus this one right here. Now you take your sharpest tip tool, which the kits that you have that you bought from me, they're going to have this one tool that's got this little tip. Most of the time it's on yellow, but I've noticed that sometimes it kind of switches up. The easiest one is bring the paint down If you need it to go a little bit further, you just start back up here and bring down even more. And it takes it a little bit further. And then you kind of reach out to the edge right here. Go to like the edge and then swoop down to about here to kind of blend it. Same thing with the other side. Make sure your paint's pushed over there so you can drag it, because if it doesn't, then you're not going to get those clean lines. So you bring this one down to this one and then just fill it in. That's it. And then even out your paint if you want to. So there's that swoosh. When you don't have enough paint, I'm going to show y'all. When you don't have enough paint, so we're going to start with this right there. Whenever you try to pull down, number one, it's not going to go far. It's going to leave gaps. And then when you try to fill it in, you're basically just scratching the edge. And then it ends up the very poor result. So, I know you can't tell as bad with the camera because, you know, it likes to buffer things sometimes. But there's a difference between that one and this one. Now, another dot. Let me clean this off because I purposely kind of made it all messy and everything. Another one. We're going to dip it again. See where we've got that little mound to get a good circle. But we're going to re-dip to load up the paint because we need to add more paint. More is better here. Make sure to clean off your tip because if not, the paint from the previous part that maybe dried a little bit will come off in it, and it doesn't dry as pretty. So another one, you start the same. Bring it down. Then you go to the edge again and then bring it down to the tip. And go over here. The other side. And then, oh, see, that's what I was talking about. Make sure to watch out for clumps because they can mess up what your lines. So a little clump, I missed it. That's okay, we'll fix it. Go out and then down. And then you kind of get that teardrop look. It's a little off right here in this area because of the paint boogie is what they're called. Little paint boogies. And so now because I'm more up the edge, another thing you can do is like lightly tap it, but do not press all the way down. If you end up getting too much paint, that's something else you can do. That's more of a little of an advanced step, but that's okay. You'll get it with practice, guys. Okay. I'm going to bring this one down. Try to do this again where it looks neater. Or more neat, I guess. Same thing. Having enough paint is important. Okay, now the third kind of swoosh that you can do is going to be a little curved at the end, which I feel are the most fun. You can play with them. You can make them go whichever way. Once again, try to make sure you are loading up your dot. If you don't load up your dot, this isn't going to go well. Kind of like I showed you with this one right here. And so what we are going to do, now this one, it's a little bit easier if you start from the edge, in my opinion. Whatever edge you're going to swish in, like I'm going to put the edge down over here. You don't have to put the dot, that's just so y'all see which way I'm going with it. Now usually like there's a circle you're going around so you have more of a guide. And then take this side, kind of meet down to it. kind of switch to the side. Let's try to do another one. Oh, that one had a glob in it. A little paint boogie. We need to get that out first, or your lines will not come out well. But I gotta find it. Ooh, I found it the first time. Nice. Y'all, it's important to get rid of those. They happen. Make sure to clean off your tip, like I said before. Make sure you clean off your tip to make sure that you're bringing down clean lines. And older paint is not going to break off and leave kind of like those boogies. So we're gonna go the other way. I'm gonna make it sharper, like a sharper turn, sharper curve. And if there's not enough paint, just kind of start up here. Make sure you're grabbing some and come back down. And then take this side. This one's gonna look more like a comma. And slowly bring it down. And then once it's in there, just fill it in. And so, these are a lot of fun. But once again, if you do not have enough paint, like I'll do it below this one, and you try to do this without having enough paint, it doesn't go as smoothly as it should. And so, see, like, number one, you're not going to get as far with your tail of your swoosh. Number two, it's not as clean. Like, that's why it's important. Like, at first I tried to be sparing with my paint because I don't like to waste. I have this issue about wasting stuff. So I wouldn't put on enough paint and my swooshes would look like that instead of nice and neat and clean. Now, somebody had mentioned about using two tools. Now, some of the issues that I run into, especially when I'm working on my actual paintings, is I am trying to get my point down, but I'm not using a big enough tip where you're going to have enough paint to bring down. So what they're talking about when they were saying, hey, I've seen you use two tools. The second tool you will not have with your kit unless you want to try to do it with this tip, with the point tip. Let's get that off. You can try to do it with the point tip. But let's say I've got a smaller circle just because I want the lean look of these, which load up just like with the bigger tool. Load up your dot. And then once it's loaded up, kind of take it. Like I would go here, let's do it the way I do it. So after I've loaded it up, I would bring this down. And if it was ending quite where I wasn't ready, like let's say I want it to end down here, what I would do is use my tip and kind of pull it down even further. Now, because it's a smaller dot, I will even sometimes kind of load up more paint, start up here just to make sure, and bring it down even further. But that's more of an advanced step, and I will be doing more advanced tips later on. Right now we are working on the basics. That way we can get some tutorial videos put up on my YouTube. So we've got our dots where you take your tool and you consistently dot. You dip it in paint, you dot, you dip it in paint, and then you dot. We have the rod dots. Walking the dots, we showed you what it looks like as you walk them, and then when you have too much paint on your tool and then try to walk the dots, it's not as consistent like these three. You get that big blob and then it starts going. And then 3 different types of swooshes. So we've got the one with the thin long tail. This one is if you don't have enough paint, it kind of messes with it. This one, you kind of got, I know you can't really see it now because it's kind of dried, but you see how it kind of humped out over here? That's because I had a little paint boogie in it. Whenever I was bringing down this line, it started bringing stuff out right there. So since that happened, it kind of messed with it. So that's why you got to make sure to clean out your little paint boogies as soon as you notice them. So we redid it. Now we've got the more straight lines down over here instead of it kind of bubbled out a little bit over here. And then we have these swooshes where you're going to curve them whichever way you want, for short, long, whatever you want to do. And then this is what happens when you don't have enough paint to pull down. You see how this tail kind of ends more nicely. And this one, it's just missing a lot. So now once again, this one is a more advanced way of doing it. And we're working on basics for people who are just starting out. So hopefully y'all have enjoyed this.